Kent E. Nielsen here, and I'm delighted to have you with me. Christ came into the world to do the will of his Father, and he prepared a way for you to do likewise. Join me to put him first in your life, receive the fruits of godliness, and realize your divine mission to be like him. You were born and commanded to do greater works than he did. Now let's go to work. Hello, and welcome to Jesus is the Mark. Grateful to have you here tonight. I have special guests. Many of you have surely noted the intro and outro to Jesus is the Mark. I have collaborated with my neighbors to make this. They did the music and spliced my voice into it and made it sound very professional. I'm grateful for their professionalism and to have them as a guest tonight on the podcast. Would you like to add anything to what I've said so far?
We're very, very, very fortunate and very grateful for you to have us on your podcast. It is a huge honor, and we were so excited when you first mentioned this to us. And we love having you as our neighbor, and we love collaborating with you. And we definitely know that we were brought together for a reason, to share our passions, to share our excitement for what we do in life, and just being here present in life and just being neighbors has just been wonderful, and we're very happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Ken.
My pleasure. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And one thing I'll note is it's awesome to have amazing neighbors and that are so uplifting and so positive, and to people that you can tell care about God, regardless of what faith tradition you belong to. And I initially, with the Jesus is the Mark movement, I was thinking that I wanted to target members of the church, and I still very much want to do that, but I also wanted to be inclusive, all inclusive, to members of other faiths too, or members or people that just believe in God. They don't necessarily have to have a particular faith. And so you're a further witness to me, knowing that you're not a member of my faith, that awesome people exist in this world. And I'm so grateful for your kindness and your knocking on my door a couple of weeks ago to get your business license, to get you up and running. So yes, so I'll start with the question that we initially started. I mentioned what I was doing and what the podcast was all about, and you said I could support something like that. Why is that?
And the reason why that we support that is because it's what you're doing is wonderful for all walks of life. You don't have to be, a member of certain things just for it to be a focal point. It's more or less just anybody can receive this message. Anybody can really feel what you're talking about and what your message is. And it really applies, it can apply to everybody. And it reached out and it touched us because it's all about self-improvement. It's feeling, that Holy Spirit and God and the universe and all these things that really just make people want to be better people. And just meeting you has been wonderful because we definitely see that no matter what this world is, the world is kind of like, it's just a mystery. And then it's kind of like there's certain things like the diamond in the rough. And once you find that, and once you kind of get through all the stuff, you can find wonderful people in life or wonderful messages and wonderful just testimonials, anything really. And then it really makes somebody just want to either better themselves or just, I don't know, it's just wonderful. And I don't really know what to say else, but
yeah, I think there's always going to be something that somebody can receive in a message as long as they're open to it. And unfortunately, there are people that close themselves off to that connection. And we have always done our best to remain open to that connection and to see and pinpoint messages and feelings and insights that we know are good for us and good for other people, and that promote that connection between not only us as people, but to a divinity, a divine, whether that's God, the universe, energy, just in generalization. There's always going to be something to receive. And so having somebody as passionate as you are, just as passionate as we are, and doing what you know your purpose is here on this life and on this earth, we're trying to do the same thing. So it's brilliant and phenomenal to find somebody on a similar path, even though we use different terms or different ways to go about it. You know, we're fulfilling our purpose, and we know we're here for a reason, and that's incredible to experience.
Well said. Thank you. You used the word connection a couple of times. What do you mean by that connection?
I view connection as connection, of course, to other people, but
Uh-huh.
connection to your higher self or your higher being, the better version of you. And
Love
in
it.
that, I feel like, you know, in that there's God, in that there's the overall energy of the universe or whatever it may be, but it's that connection to the higher version of you.
Yes, that I love that. C.S. Lewis, who is an author for many years ago, he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. He said something along those that's I think is applicable to what we're talking about. He said that if you were to see the average Joe in their real glory of who they really are, you'd be tempted to worship them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to tie that into your word connection. You know, this higher self that you're referencing. When we see people for who the divine that's in them, it's like, whoa, wow. And you make a connection with them. You see them as who they can be, not as who they have been. And that helps you to be deeply rooted with them, especially if you're open.
I love that.
Absolutely. And it's that's super important too, because it's from what you just said kind of reminds me of just, you know, loving and accepting someone from who they are and who they can be, and then casting no judgment on one's past or anything like that. I love being present with connection. And of
Well
course,
said.
understanding someone's foundation and past is really important too. But uh, our past don't pass. Sorry, our past does not define us. It only propels us to move forward to be better people and to love people and to connect.
Thank you. What you said reminds me, and what you said previously too, you mentioned the diamond in the rough. And I remember when I watched Aladdin as a kid, and I thought, oh, a diamond in the rough. I'm a diamond in the rough. I'm gonna change the world or whatever, you know. Then as I started dating in life and got older, I was like, man, when is a woman going to see the diamond in the rough in me? Because I had so many flaws, you know, and when am I going to be good enough or perfect enough to meet someone and be married? And finally, in my 29th year, I met someone, my wife today, almost celebrating almost 20 years of marriage this year. And I asked her probably, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, what is it you saw in me? And she said something, it's like, the Lord looketh on the heart. And the reason why I asked that, I failed to mention this, is that we would say to me, I love the changes you've been making. I love the changes you've been making. And she said that so many times. I'm like, why did you marry me if I had to make so many changes? And that's when she said that the Lord looketh on the heart. And then I thought immediately, then my mind went to, oh, so you saw the diamond in the rough. Thank you. So,
No, that's wonderful, and I'm so happy that you shared that, because again, it's being able to connect to you on that personal level too. That reflects into Kate and I's story as well. I mean, we've been together for 6 years, I think, almost going on 7 now. So dated for 3, then married for 3, almost 4 now. But it's amazing because we've come so far in life together too as a couple, and I'll never forget her telling me, you know, like we went on like this little date, and we would always go drive at night, and we just go to these areas where it was just like outside, you know, nature involved, and and we loved to watch the stars and the moon. That was like our favorite thing. And I'll never forget, you know, one of the nights she asked me, she's like, what do you want to do for the world? What is your aspirations? What do you aspire to do? And I
Wow.
told her, I was like, the only thing that I knew was just that the power of music moves people. And I told her I want to help the world with music, no matter what it may be. I don't know what avenue that's going to be. If I'm going to be a performer, if I'm going to make music for somebody. I didn't quite know what it was at that time, but I knew it was going to involve music, because music is passion, music is power. It connects everybody, and it's just music is just unfathomably beautiful.
And
And
funnily enough, that was my ambition in life and exactly what I wanted to do. And I was searching for somebody that was had the same ambition, had the same passion as I did for music, and wanted to carry that forward with me. And so, yeah, it was magical.
and what makes this like special too, in relation to like you and like being that diamond in the rough, is like we've had a roller coaster of a life together, and things have been up and down, and
You
but
too,
like
huh?
in good ways, if you look at it healthily,
Yeah.
in beautiful ways, because you know, without pain, what's the point in glory? Because you have to go through things that have to build you up and make you a better person. If you don't experience kind of the rough, then you will not be that diamond you aspire to be. And we've been through a lot, and it's been a wonderful journey. And I
That,
love relating with that to you, because understanding that we all have our things that we've had before, but making the changes for the better to be a better human.
that begs the question, how are diamonds made? You know, they're not made by just being on the wayside.
Are they
They're
made under
they're
pressure?
they're made under extreme heat and extreme
Extreme
pressure
pressure, yep.
over a lengthy period of time.
Right. Yep. And it
So
takes time.
so for those that aren't seeing this as it as a podcast, Kate and Zach have a drum set behind them. So you give the two thumbs up. It's just a further testament of the music that they love to perform. And so I'm curious, Kate. You know, you said that was what got you interested into music. You mentioned that was your passion as well, but I know for
Yes.
him, he was playing the drum, but I'm sure he has more to elaborate on that. But what was it for you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I started taking piano lessons when I was about 11 years old. And it's funny because I had my lessons and I'm supposed to be learning how to read sheet music and practice my songs. But I found myself every time I would sit down at the piano, I would just start coming up with my own songs and my own melodies. And then I'd start writing lyrics. And before that, I always wrote poems. I wrote poems since I was like probably 7, 8. And
Wow.
so poetry was my stronghold in that. And then I figured out like, oh wait, I can actually put my words to something more and into something that's more expressing exactly how I want these words to come across. And so that's kind of where it all started was yeah, taking piano lessons. And then eventually I only took them for like maybe a year or two.
Yeah.
I did learn how to read sheet music. I've lost that now. But yeah, ever since then, I've just always been thinking and creating melodies in my head. And, you know, sometimes I've had a piano to write them down and sometimes I haven't. And so there was a long period of time where I didn't have access to a keyboard or any type of musical instrument. And so it was just all kind of bottled up. And then once I met Zach and he kind of showed me how to write music electronically, you know, and how to use a DAW system and plugins and all of that. And that just opened me up to this whole world. And now I finally feel like I can just let all of those bottled emotions and everything just flow and free or flee through music. So yeah, that's my journey pretty much for music.
I love it. Thank you for sharing your talent that and how it started. I think it was a week ago about you shared a piece of music that you'd written called Creation. It was
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful. And
Thank you.
I love instrumental music, and it just it shined. And you can see who you are through your music. It's really cool.
Thank you.
What about you, Zach?
Oh boy, I do have a history. Um, I could try to make a long story short, but it's probably going to be a good story. So, oh my gosh. My passion for music is always been there because my parents brought me up with like a bunch of like cool 80s music, and I just loved everything my parents listened to ever since I was like 4. I was very young, and they my dad was always so adamant about just like all the songs that he was so passionate about, and I kind of took that on from him. And I guess so fast forward to about, I'd say, late 2008. I was about 14 years old, and I had just met one of my really good buddies. His name is Ty. And we were at school. I don't know who introduced me to him. I don't know how it was. We just kind of, again, just came together. It was just like that moment that was just meant to be, where someone's meant to be in your life. And he was
Connection that Kate was referencing earlier.
exactly that connection. And we met, and he was telling me, he's like, oh, I love music. I play guitar. We should get together and hang out sometime. Like, cool. I was like, I literally just got a guitar for my birthday. My parents bought me a Fender First Act, and it's just kind of the basic $200 package. You get like a little amp and you get a guitar, and
Yeah.
and I was playing with that for a little while, and I don't know, it's interesting to have like I kind of had like an attuned ear already. Like there was a certain sound that I just didn't quite like with like was coming from the amp of the guitar, and bless my dad, he's a wonderful man, and he was like, well, if that's not something you're looking for, well, let's upgrade you. I'm like, cool. So we go back out, and I get a little bit better of a guitar, a little bit better of an amp. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. It was just something I just totally loved, and it was the sound I wanted. So, and then I ended up hanging out with my good buddy Ty, and he's an amazing guitar player. Like he was playing the Eruption solo, Eddie Van Halen. I'm like, he's 14. I'm like, how is this kid so good at guitar? And I'm sitting
Yeah.
here like kind of playing, and
Yeah.
and he was so wonderful because he was so patient, and he loved me for who I was, and he was just so excited to have somebody else play an instrument with him. So he taught me everything, and till this day I have to hand it to him because my guitar skills came from learning a lot from my friend Ty. And
Love it.
and it was really cool because then we ended up meeting another individual who was supposed to be our drummer, which was funny, and he ended up being our singer. And then I found an undiscovered talent for being a drummer because we didn't have a drummer, and we wrote a song, and I had a beat, and I just sat down and played, and they're like, well, where did that come from? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know. So, and then I had this really butterfly, exciting, electric feeling to tell my parents. I'm like, I'm so sorry. You guys are so supportive, and you've already bought me a guitar, but I just found out I'm a drummer. And they're like, really? And it was quite humorous and really funny. But ever since then, yeah, I haven't lost any skills for the guitar. I've gotten better, but for the last, what is that, almost 15 years, I can't do it. I'm trying to figure out the math. So late 2008, I was about 14. I'm 29 now.
So 15 years. Yeah. It's
15, yeah,
2023. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, 15 years, yeah. That's about how long I've been a drummer, and that's just kind of what took precedence in my life instrumentally. But I wanted to grow from there too because I've been involved with recording studios and other, more established bands as, my music career and myself had progressed in life. And I kind of saw what it was like to be in a studio and understand what that is total, like the atmosphere and how it all works. Like the music industry, it was so fascinating to me. And I learned very quickly that, it's kind of funny that being a guitarist or being just a drummer isn't quite what the music industry holds up to be. Like people really look at you as not wanting to be like, they don't not being a one trick pony, I guess, to say. Like there's a lot that needs to be done that each member of a band or anybody in a studio needs help with. So the expectancy levels just like skyrocketed, like through the roof. It's like, well, you can't just drum. Can you like actually play guitar and write something like on a DAW, which is digital audio workbase? And I was like, oh, I can try. So I ended up buying my old guitarist like laptop, is a old MacBook, late 2013. And that was Kate and I's workhorse for quite a long time. And oh my gosh, even back then, I literally didn't even really know what I was doing. But I'm like, well, this is the expectation. It's kind of crazy. And um, eventually, yeah, I just found out that like, my guitarist at the time, not Ty, by the way, this is fast forward.
Yeah.
He was kind of the backbone of that band that I had told you that I was in, the Oceanside.
Yeah.
And he was writing everything. He was even drawing in and doing all the drums too at one point after I had, was tracking my parts, but he just wanted to expedite the process. He's like, well, I wrote this whole song. I need, our vocalist to sing his parts because he's the front man. No one can really imitate his voice, that kind of thing. And he pretty much, yeah, just would write all these songs, and it was just so overwhelming. And he kind of just put more of like a really big workload on himself, and he ended up leaving. He was just like, well, you guys aren't up to my level. And it was kind of a heartbreak. It's like, oh man, we're really trying here. But he skyrocketed and really exceeded because he was living in a studio amongst other audio engineers and people that were training him because he was interning.
Yeah.
But he figured out his worth, and he just moved on. And sometimes, like I said before, it's like you kind of have to, without pain, what's the point in glory? And going through a little bit of heartbreak and a little bit of a shattered, so a little crumble, can actually make you a completely better person if you have that drive to do it. So seeing that, I wanted to do that. I was like, well, I'm more than just a drummer, more than just a guitarist. I am a musician. And that's what inspired me so much, was that self-motivation to do my schooling and pay for that and be a part of my musician on a mission schooling to exceed and just become, I guess, the ultimate musician that I aspire myself to be, and for Kate as well. And that's kind of what leads us up to the present day.
I love it. Absolutely love it. What you said reminds me of something that Napoleon Hill teaches. He actually, it was Andrew Carnegie taught Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill wrote the book called Think and Grow Rich. And the story is that, so before he started that 25-year journey of writing that book, Andrew Carnegie said to him something to an effect, I'll paraphrase it, that when failure hits, often that is the catalyst to take you to the next level. Because he said, because it forces you to think. And when you do that extra thinking, that it's kind of like turning the coin. It's like that pain turns over to your passion, to your mission, to your next thing. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%.
And what you were saying there, totally made it was like, oh, there's a good perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Because you went through that pain, and then all of a sudden, oh, and it took you to the next level.
Right. And it's amazing too, because like, when you go through that heartbreak or the pain or whatever it may be, it'll bring you to the next level. And essentially what's amazing for being a human is there's no such thing as absolutely like reaching the top or the peak. Like you can, if you reach a peak, then you're putting yourself there. I believe that the sky is not even the limit, because I know that there are multiple steps of having like, a little bit of failures and a little bit of pain that happen. But how do you overcome that step each time? Because yeah, again, it's been a roller coaster ride, even from doing my schooling, because it's like everything I learned and then me trying to apply it. Because like, okay, now go do that. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to do that. And I do it. And I'm like, this still doesn't sound good. What am I doing wrong? And you kind of beat yourself up a little bit, but it's awesome because now Kate and I are so confident in our work, is because of all the pain and all the things that we've gone through trying to write music and even mix and master and do all these things, that we're here now. And it's really crazy, because I wouldn't feel confident to give you music that we had written if it wasn't good, and now that we're reaching that point where it's sounding good and we're more confident with our work, we want you to have that and to show to the world. Because yeah, if you have anything that's just kind of like at that demo quality, it's just not, there's no professionalism out of that. And we've been there so many times where we think, oh, this sounds so great because our monitors, our studio monitors, our speakers sound so good, but then we'd go do the car test and then we cry. It's like, oh my gosh, it doesn't sound good. What happened? But being able to master those skills it feels so good. There's just so much, triumph out of that because yeah, there's just so many instances that we've had where it's just like, oh, this does not sound good, to now we're like, this is actually sounding really great. And there's still more that I have to learn too. And I'm so excited to learn that because that's my passion. And Kate's even amazing too, to sit down and just like watch some of these videos with me because she wants to learn some things, even how to make better sounding vocals or whatever it may be. But there's always something to learn. And I truly know that I will never reach a peak because I'm going to keep climbing. And I know we're both going to keep climbing because there's always room to improve, always room to learn. And we just strive for that knowledge and we love it so much.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you.
Complacency doesn't seem part of your life.
No, yeah.
One of the things as you were talking about your friend Ty that really stood out to me, I mentioned this in my first book, that when you want to develop a talent, often it's because you see it in other people. And so for example, if someone's kind to you, you're like, oh wow, what's this kindness thing? And then you're kind to someone else and you're like, oh, that's what that kindness thing is. And when someone's a good guitar, you're like, whoa, they're good. Like, oh, maybe I could do that. And then I think the key that I found is when you see people like that, often, not everyone, but in most cases, if you were to compliment someone on their talent and ask them, hey, for some tips, some how-tos, how to further develop it, etc., they'll share and they'll share openly and happily that knowledge with you. And through that, you grow and you can start developing the talent that they have. So that's one of the principles that I talk about in my book, that to try and invite people, like, if you see good in the world, it's the first thing is to recognize the good and then to ask, why is it good, so to speak? And then you start discovering the how to do the why of the what. And that new how gives you a new what to do. That's kind of the 4-step pattern of holiness that I reference in my book. So again, you're a living witness of correct principles. I love it.
Yeah.
You just radiate good. So
No,
thank you.
Yeah, and as do you. And it's seriously such an honor. And I think it's amazing to think that we're literally on this call and we're just about maybe 100 yards from each other.
Yeah, you're right over there.
It's so cool. And ultimately, what I again find so amazing is just like we are striving to do the same things in life, even if it's, like your podcast, Jesus is the Mark, or our studio and our work for Onyx. We are here ultimately wanting to share and give, because you already have been showing us so much, that you have so much light and love. You have a wonderful house and family, and you are definitely somebody that we look up to, like ultimately in just a 2-week span. So we appreciate you so much for what you do, because it makes Kate and I feel welcome and so loved, and it's really, really hard to come by something like that these days. And it's just a wonderful experience, and we really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Did you want to add anything, Kate?
I just agree 100%.
I feel like I've been talking a lot. I love talking. Anyway, yeah.
So in March we renewed our lease to stay where we were, to stay here in this home, and we were considering moving elsewhere. And having met you guys, I see one of the biggest reasons why we should have stayed and why we did stay, so that we could meet you. You all have made a huge impact in my life, and helped catapult me to the next level, not only with raising the bar in my intro and outro, but it's the ramifications or the ripple effects work in wanting to raise the bar in the rest of my work with my podcast and within my family and as a neighbor, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for having that positive and lifting and edifying ripple effect in my life.
Oh, and the feeling is more than mutual. And thank you too. I feel like there's just a big synergy that we have, and I truly admire that.
Me too.
Final thoughts?
I don't know. I just think it's again, I don't want to reiterate too much, but I think that it's been really good to have to be guests on your podcast. For one, this is it's just wonderful, and we are so grateful for that. And I feel like this is actually helping us too in a very, very, very big way personally, because here soon for us in our business, we got to start making videos and start talking to the public. And I personally feel like, since we're, we kind of like to stay at home and, do our own thing, but it's just like, ultimately you have helped me have more confidence in being a voice for just our business, Onyx. Being here and being present makes me feel good and makes me feel like I can accomplish anything just from the power that you radiate. And we really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, you've helped affirm the value and the worth in what we do. And it's something like we already know, but to hear it from somebody else and to have that reassurance and that, those affirming words really help us to know, okay, we are on the right path. We know what we're doing, and we are already helping people and serving the purpose that we want to in this lifetime. And so thank you so much for that. And again, yeah, thank you for having us on here and letting us share a little bit of our story.
My pleasure. So I have two final questions. One is, how do people reach you, aka your website address?
Okay.
And then I'll tell you the second question.
Okay. Yeah, people can reach us at www.onyx, spelled ONNX, music.com. And then we do have an email that you can email us at too. It's contact@onyxmusic.com. And again, that's ONNX.
Awesome. Thank you for that plug-in. I appreciate it. So the second question is, what are your thoughts on what we should title today's podcast?
Oh, what should we title today's podcast? You can call it Kent and the Neighbors. I don't know.
While you were saying that, I was thinking Diamond in the Rough.
Diamond in the Rough is wonderful, and I 100% agree with that. That is wonderful.
Diamond in the Rough with my neighbors. So.
Yes.
Cool. Well, it's such a treat to have you as neighbor. I look forward to collaborating with you further, and thank you so much for your generosity and your time, and for being a guest on the Jesus is the Mark podcast. Thank you for joining us tonight.
No, thank you so much, Kent. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you for joining me for a brief mental workout. Wise men do their mightiest works with their mental exertions. I encourage you to take time to ponder on the weightier matters of life and to govern your body with pure mental exertions, rather than having your body tell you what to do. You are welcome to connect with me further at my link in bio, where you can access my book, my social handles, my latest creative updates, and even request coaching services via email. I have been given much and am here to serve. Thank you, and God bless you to be fruitful in doing your mightiest works. Good day.